Episode 6, and we got Cameron Craik in the seat for the Who's Your Agent podcast. Now, full transparency, everybody that I had interviewed up until this point was somebody that I already had a relationship with before, somebody that I already knew going into it, and somebody that like it was kind of like a safe space for me to kind of ask them some of these questions that I feel like I already knew the answer to. So Cameron was unbelievable. So big shout out to him for being the first guest on the Who's Your Agent podcast that I didn't have that relationship with at first. And I have to say, this is one of the favorite conversations that I've had so far. He was unbelievable in explaining how his dedication to fitness translates into his dedication to his business, and more than that, how some of the principles that he learned as a young kid working for his dad and working for his grandpa and the company that they started, how he still carries those principles with him today, and how those principles are going to be felt by his clients. Super excited for you guys to hear this episode with Cameron Craik. Cameron Craik.
Right.
Did I say that right?
You did.
I know I asked you a couple of times, but you never know. So sometimes when it comes out, it doesn't sound right. So episode 6 of the Who's Your Agent podcast, the entire premise of this show is when you look at the numbers, there are somewhere between 27 and 28,000 active real estate agents in the state of Utah right now, which is an ungodly number. That's a ton of real estate agents. And we see that happen in a positive market.
With the lowest inventory.
Yeah, with an industry an industry that is absolutely struggling to provide any sort of product, any sort of answer to it even, right? There's not like a, hey, if we can get this done, then we're here, right? So you have agents that are just fighting over each other. You have people that are discounting their commissions. You have people that are maybe shouldn't be in the industry, but watched Selling Sunset one time and thought, you know what, this is a sexy industry for me to be in. So yeah, I want to jump in. So we appreciate you coming on, because what we want to do with this is highlight some of the top agents in the state and some of the agents that are doing some unbelievable things with their business.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on. I'm super grateful. So.
No, of course. So we love to start at the beginning. We don't want to jump into the middle. We don't want to jump into the end, but we want to start at the very beginning, right? Where you were, what life looked like before you got into real estate, how long you've been in real estate, and kind of what your life looked like leading up to it. What I've learned in just a couple of episodes of doing this is that usually what was the motivation for people getting into the business, you can still see a lot of those truths in the way that they run their business today. So walk us through a little bit about where you were, what you were doing, why real estate.
Okay, great question. So prior to real estate, I got my license in 2007. Prior to real estate, I was working for...
Hold on, I'm going to stop you really quick. Oh. Liquid death.
Crack the liquid death.
Yeah, I didn't open it, so it's going to be loud, so go ahead.
Yeah, so prior to real estate, I was working for a family business. My dad and his brothers owned a linen company here in the valley, one of the bigger linen companies. And I had been working for them through high school, after high school. My young, entitled punk ass at the time thought I was going to be taking over the business one day. And then in 2007, my dad came to me and said, it's time to figure out what you want to do with your life, because we're selling the company.
Which is a gut punch, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah. I mean,
how old were you at the time?
Mid-20s.
Yeah, so everything, I work for my dad. I've been wanting to work for him for my entire life. So if all of a sudden he came and said, hey, I'm done, go figure out your life, I'd be like, hey, wait.
Oh, wait, yeah.
We should have talked about this first, right?
Yeah,
There's supposed to be some conversation here.
And that's kind of the position I was in. I had some cousins that were working there too, and the family had gotten too big to provide for everybody. So they made the right decision for them at the time. At the time, so we were just talking, there's roughly 28,000 agents in the industry right now, and I think a lot of them get in for the wrong reasons. Ricky Caruth says we're going to lose more agents this year than we have ever in the history of the industry.
There's already a high turnover rate within real estate, right? A lot of real estate agents that get their license this year won't re-up next year.
Exactly.
For a lot of the reasons that you're probably going to talk about, but it's a lot tougher than I think a lot of people look at it. And like you said, they get into it for the wrong reasons.
Exactly, and it's easy to get in.
Back when I did it, the barrier to entry is super low. 120 hours of schooling, a test that you have, I think, unlimited chances to pass at it.
Exactly.
And you're in.
And when I did it was 90 hours, so it was even easier. But at that time, I was still young, and I was thinking $10,000 paychecks, and I get to make my own hours. Like,
you started adding up 3% of
I'm in
3% of your average purchase price.
Exactly.
No hours, no boss.
Yeah, and it was 2007, so I got a reality uppercut to the chin pretty quick. It was the market fell apart, the economy fell apart, and the housing industry was kind of leading the drop into the hole, so.
Yeah, but I'm really excited to hear about this, because I think a lot of people that got licensed in 2007 and then lived through 2008 aren't sitting here 12 years later, 14 years later with their license and very actively still involved in real estate, right? So I'm super excited to hear this, honestly.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what I figured. If I could get through that, through 2007, 2008, 2009, that I could get through any market. It was about what I believe everything in life's about, consistency. And I watched a couple of your other episodes, your other podcasts, and it seems that there's a common factor in good agents and good people, in my opinion, and it's that they come from a position of service, of wanting to actually help people. And that wasn't me in the beginning. I was kind of young, and I was like, I want $10,000 paychecks. And I want
just because everybody says they're getting into it for the service, like at the same time too, as much as we love people, as much as we love being able to help people, this is still a job. This is still a career. This is still a profession. So money always is going to have to be a consideration, I think, when getting into it. So I think that you're being super honest, which we appreciate. But I think it's completely okay to say, hey, I wanted to serve people and I wanted to be able to provide for myself and my family.
Yeah, and that was part of it.
What was it about real estate though? Because you were doing linen, which is, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to sound ignorant. I don't know much about linen, right? But what was it that made you kind of pivot? What was it that kind of made you say, you know what, from that to this? Was it the lower barrier to entry? Like, hey, I can start this tomorrow. What was it that drew you in on real estate?
So I've always liked to read and learn, and I try to progress and try to be a better person. And I just read a lot, and I'd read that more millionaires in the world are made through real estate, that generational wealth can come through real estate. And in the beginning, it was dollar signs, in my eyes. I was young, and I've learned over time, like we were just talking about, that if I put service first and just wanting to actually provide value and help people, everything else just follows.
Did you get that from your dad? Did you get that from, like, being able to see, right? Because my business is very, very much structured from what I watched growing up. And I think one of the perks to working within a family organization is you get to see kind of behind the curtain. And so like from an Edge Home standpoint, I've been able to watch my dad sit there and read every survey that comes through. And we send buyers, I think 4 or 5 of them throughout the process, which is why I think when people come through, agents and buyers come through the process, they're like, damn, that was smooth. That was easy. For the most part, it's still new construction. There's still going to be headaches, but you get to kind of see behind the curtains, right? So is that something that you picked up from watching your dad, or where is that just innate in who you are?
No, it was, yeah. It was watching my dad and his brothers, my uncles, run their business and the way they ran it, and also their grandfather who started the business, way back when. But it was very service-oriented. It was taking care. So when my great-grandfather started the business, he was the only linen company in Utah that promised that every apron that he gave to cooks and chefs and restaurants would have both of the strings on it, that they would be connected to the apron. And that was like, he was like, I promise they'll be there, because other people would show up with aprons falling apart, one string.
And that was his value add.
That was his value add. And he had others as well, but he was he wanted to know what.
But he knew what the experience was. Yeah, he knew what the experience had to be, and he was very, very specific and hell-bent on making sure that experience was lived in, right?
Exactly, yeah. And he wanted to know, like I said, what the client wanted. It's about them. And in real estate, it is in all aspects. And this is just my opinion, but in all aspects of life, in your relationships and business and real estate, it boils down to your relationships, to adding value, to providing service, and to just helping people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you got into real estate 2007. Market goes to hell in 2008.
Yep.
And you say, okay, I want to serve people. I want to provide for my family. How did you start your business, right? What did that first year kind of look like for you? Going forward in a down market?
So first year was a little tough. I had to pivot, so I kind of looked at the situation and had to decide, where do I want to go from here? And I thought, okay, well, if the market's going down, there's a ton of foreclosures. People, unfortunately, are losing their houses. They can't keep up with their payments. So there's going to be opportunity for people to buy homes for pennies on the dollar, fix them up, resell them, hold them as rentals, build a portfolio. So I actually joined a team, worked with some guys where we helped investors pick up homes at auction, trustee sales, grandma and grandpa's house that had passed away, and would help guys fix them up and either flip them or hold on to them and build a portfolio. Did that for a long time. I worked the buyer side of it too. So if we were helping the investor sell the property after fixing it up, and we put a sign in the front yard, I'd field all the buyer calls that would come in on the home, and just kind of work that side of things.
Which I think that's something that's misunderstood about what 2008 through 2010 looked like. There were still people buying houses. There were still people. There were still people that were actively engaging in real estate, and a lot of them are very wealthy now because of that them jumping into that down market,
I was
right?
just going to say a lot of them are laying on the beach right now.
Yeah, a lot of them are hanging out like they're not even looking at the news and saying, okay, what's the real estate market doing now?
Yeah, it's crazy. When there's a sell at Nordstrom's, everyone lines up at the door and waits for it to open so they can get in. When there's a sell on real estate, people are always super cautious. And I understand it's a lot bigger, you're pulling the trigger on a lot bigger purchase. But yeah, real estate was on sale. And the savvy investors and buyers were buying up as much property and homes as they could because they knew at some point it's going to come back. The market, as we know, it has its ups and downs, but if you look over history, it's been going up and down, but over the long term, it's been going up. So
yeah, one of the things that I've always heard my dad, going back to what we were saying about hearing kind of behind the scenes, that he always said, right, and Edge Homes was started in 2008, right in the middle of the downturn. Yeah, one of the things that he always said is you don't make your money when you sell, you make your money when you buy.
Exactly.
And that is so indicative of what we did see in 2008, and I think also what we're going to start to see over the next year within real estate, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So in that first year, you pivoted. I love that word. That's another theme that I would say a lot of our guests have shared, is that they themselves as agents are able to pivot, right? So what were you able to pivot from, right, going out of that recession? Obviously the market changed, foreclosures went away. You're still here. There's a lot of people that put all of their eggs in the foreclosure basket and aren't selling anymore. Yep. What would you say you've kind of carried with you after that first year of kind of getting your ass kicked a little bit, right?
Yeah. Relationships. I knew that at the end of the day, it boiled down to relationships too. So I kept those relationships in place with family, friends, past clients, made sure to add value, find out what I could do for them if they needed anything. I knew it might not be the right time right now. Situation might not be, right now for you, but what do you need? Or do you know someone that needs, to refinance, or that could use, a home valuation, could benefit from knowing what their home is worth right now. And I just tried to add as much value as I could. Do you need an investment guide? Do you need a buyer's guide? Do you need a seller's? What can I do to help you? I'm here to help. And keeping those relationships in place helped because, the market shifted again, as it always does.
And it always will.
And always will, yeah. Right? So that's one thing we need to learn to do is constantly pivot. And at the forefront of that, or the base of that is relationships, adding value, wanting to help people, and then on that, pivoting and finding out where we need to go and what we need to do to help people. So, like you mentioned, foreclosures nearly went away, especially with COVID over the last couple of years. People, the government put a moratorium on foreclosures. People were living in their houses without making payments.
Yeah, it was a weird time.
It was really strange. Yeah. And homeowners or people that own investment properties weren't getting paid, but the bank still wanted them to make the payments on us. There was a really weird dynamic. And so, I had to pivot again and got back into the traditional side of things again a little bit more. So started dealing with home buyers and sellers. People, regardless of the market or how things are going, people always have to buy and sell. People are having kids or getting married or getting divorced or passing away. And just had to pivot again. And we still do work with investors. Right now it's more, trying to help people. I've actually been working with Edge a little bit, so I'm
fantastic.
Glad we've got this awesome connection now, because I'll call you. But helped a couple of guys buy homes where there's not necessarily a huge cash flow in the beginning, but they understand that there's appreciation, there's depreciation that usually covers their tax liabilities. They're building equity.
Well, yeah, there's really three ways, right? All the investors that I work with, I tell them that there's three ways, and especially if they're new investors, which I would say are my favorite. The people that are coming in, they have some extra money. They're saying, hey, you know what? I want to buy my first rental property because I've been there. Mm-hmm. There's three ways that you make money during real estate or buying real estate. Number one is your appreciation, right? How much the house is going to go up versus how much you paid for it. Right. Number two is your tax savings. Mm-hmm. Call an accountant, because I don't want to give you all the very specific details, but there's a bunch of different ways that you can make money. And the third way, and usually the way that you make the least amount of money, is actually cash flow.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you can cash flow, even better, you know what I mean? And someone's making your payment for you. And then it's a tangible asset that's not as volatile as, we've seen lately, the stock market and crypto, and you never know what's going to happen with those things. But, we've had to pivot, still do some investment stuff, but I've focused more on helping people with their traditional buying and selling of
let's talk through a little bit about how your business is set up. Are you on a team? Are you solo? How are you running your business today?
Yeah, just solo. Started. So about a year and a half ago, during that pivot again, started rebranding and started Crate Closed Real Estate Group. The group is me and my wife right now, but there's plans to
The amount
to
of
grow
teams,
that.
that's one of the biggest misconceptions in real estate. The amount of teams, groups that are an individual and wife, TC, something like that.
Right, right.
That's where they all start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the goal is, we've got a goal and future plans are to grow it and to bring some people on and try to help them as well. Help them get into the industry and help people buy and sell real estate and achieve their financial goals through real estate. So, and then so I've gone and this is how I got connected with you. So in my pivot, I've kind of noticed that. Well, not kind of noticed. I've noticed that brand awareness and building a brand in real estate is kind of where it's at right
Personal
now.
branding.
Personal branding. It's getting a brand out there that people know and trust, and doing things to allow them to trust you, not just expecting the trust, but adding value and helping them and coming from a place of service so that they know you and trust you. But
it's honestly, it's building a community, and it's so different than I think what the trend has been for the last 3 to 5 years, which was amass as many followers as you possibly can, look like the expert within that world based on your follower count and not necessarily anything else.
Right.
And I think the pivot that we're seeing is that personal branding is so much more. It defines who you are as an individual so much more. Yeah. And for me personally, what I've decided is, hey, I will take a fraction of the followers if it is actually an engaged community that will help me to sell houses.
Absolutely.
If it will help me to like push what my personal brand is going forward, and I want people to know who I am. I want them to feel engaged. I want them to like be a part of what my process is every day. And more than that, I hate the idea of advertising now.
Yeah.
Right. This whole idea of like spending money on marketing dollars for Facebook leads, Instagram leads, which is always, I would say, has been the social media go-to for the last 10 years for all real estate agents. This is my big pet peeve now, is that as soon as your advertising dollar is done being spent, it's gone. It will never bring you money back, but all of the money that you can possibly put into personal branding stays with you. All of your Reels posts, all of your Instagram, anything that you are posting that goes towards personal branding doesn't go away, and it doesn't sleep, and it doesn't turn off as soon as you stop spending money on it.
Exactly, which is huge, and that's the key. I've come to that conclusion that's the key is having your brand work for you, even when you're not working, and spreading the word, and then coming, like I keep going back to this, but coming from a place of service and value, and that's what I love about Mad Cash Media is you found something that people needed, that real estate agents need. And you're adding value. It's helping me. And
I think I think that's so important to bring up, because you're not just building this personal brand for yourself. You're not just building this personal brand so that you can push refresh and see 10 comments on an Instagram post, pat yourself on the back and go home, because ultimately that doesn't pay the bills.
You're broke still.
It doesn't, right? People, you can't pay for what you do in exposure, right? That's only the first part of the equation. The reason why building that brand is so important, I think, is because of what comes with that, and that's you being able to help facilitate people with that real estate transaction, right? Ultimately, that's why you're developing this personal brand, is so that you can offer what you offer to clients.
Exactly.
Right. So give us a little bit of detail. What does that look like? What does it look like to work with you as an individual real estate agent? Why should somebody work with you? Right. In the notes that I sent you over about what we're going to talk about, it's called the degree of separation. I'd never want to talk about what makes you better, because I don't think it's a matter of being better than the next guy, but what makes you different from the next guy.
So the main thing I would say is just that I care, that I keep going back to.
Service.
I keep going back to the service. Yeah. So and this is another podcast, another story, but I grew up, and I don't say this for sympathy, but I grew up in a pretty rough childhood and needed a lot of help growing up, and so I know what it feels like to need help, to have that need, and a lot of people aren't ready or aren't willing to ask for the help, or some people don't even know what they want. A lot of times we have to help people figure out exactly what it is they want in real estate, in life, in relation, in across the board. But I've found that to be true, especially in real estate too, is a lot of people just don't even know what they want, and it's helping them find out what it is they want,
what's important to them
and their family, what goals they want to accomplish, and then helping them get from point A to point B using real estate, and it's usually building wealth, or building generational wealth, or building something they can pass on to their kids, or for some people it's just buying their first house. You know, they're 45 or 50 years old and they've never bought a home and they just want something of their own. But it's helping people figure out what it is that they want and what they long for, what their goals are, and then just helping them get from point A to point B and accomplish that goal. And you know, we've talked about branding and video and social media, and that's one thing that I feel I really stand apart in too. Is that's just the way, it's just the way of the future. Like I think I talked to you or mentioned it's not a luxury anymore, it's a necessity. Like if you look at the numbers, over half the people that find a home now, like 53%, find it on the internet first before they even talk to a real estate agent.
Would you, if you weren't a real estate agent right now, would you hire a real estate agent that wasn't actively involved on social media?
Great question. No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
And I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. It's how people get connected or feel like they know you before they actually talk to you or know you. And then, you know, you're just going all in on branding, on video. It's how people buy everything now, but especially real estate. I mean, there's some old school, like my grandma and grandpa, that don't. My grandpa still wants to go to Costco and see it and write a check for it and, you know.
Touch it and feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the majority of people now, they watch videos, they see who else is using it, they see who else trusts this product or this person, and they base their decisions off of that. So,
well, and even more so, I get into this conversation quite a bit about why video is so important and why social media and why personal branding is so important. The generation that you just described of your grandma and grandpa, to me, they are the 5-star generation. And what I mean by that is they are the Google review generation. They are the generation, and it's kind of like the generation that's maybe a little bit older than you are, which is their mom and dad told them for years, don't buy anything on the internet, don't buy anything on the internet, don't buy anything on the internet. So all of a sudden these businesses started coming out with saying, hey, look how many 5-star reviews we have. You should buy something from us on the internet. And then you have my generation that's coming up that does not care. But what they want to see is, how is that product engaged in their life? How is that product used? How is that product of going to be a part of their life if they choose to buy it? And I would say a lot of those people now, my generation, the generation ahead of me, don't even check reviews as often as they did, right? They might scroll through them just to make sure, like, hey, nothing's going crazy. But if I see something on Instagram and I'm like, hey, I like how that person is engaging with that product in their life, I'm probably sold.
You're more likely to pull the trigger. Yeah.
Very much so, yeah. And that generation of like, hey, look how many 5-star reviews we have is kind of, I don't want to say it's going away because I think it's still a very important part of business, but it's not the part of business when it comes to making a decision and on who you want to work with and what you want to use, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of kind of that gap is kind of what I am wanting or trying to narrow, because I want people to be able to make the decision to pull the trigger or use me to help them to buy real estate because they trust me from what they see on the internet and on Instagram and through video and through my reviews and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's being that person that people are confident in, that they trust, that they see are going to help, and then actually following through too. Like you said, there's a lot of people that put that out there and then don't follow through. And I don't want to be that guy either. You know, I don't want to be the guy that has all the reviews and all the posts and all the likes, but doesn't answer his phone when you call him when you want to go look at a property or when you want to sell your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
no, I love that. So I think it's also important to understand who somebody is outside of real estate. Mm-hmm. Right. So give us a little bit. I know fitness is important to you. I was looking through your Instagram just a little bit, but who are you as a well-rounded individual, right? Outside of real estate, what makes you you?
Good question. First and foremost, I'm a dad. So we were just talking before we turned the mics on, and I have 5 kids. I have 3 kids of my own and then 2 step-kids. They range from 19 all the way down to 9. So we've got our hands full and 2 dogs, and that's why I do what I do. That's why I get up in the morning. That's why I sell real estate. That's what drives me, is providing the life that my wife and kids want and deserve, and then just the freedom that consistency and hard work and the money brings with real estate. That freedom is what I work for, to be able to be at my son's baseball games and my daughter's dance recitals and my wife's bodybuilding competitions, and to be able to go to the gym and dedicate a couple hours a day to something that I love that keeps my head on straight.
I was going to say, wouldn't you feel like that makes you better?
Absolutely.
by having all of those things in your life, and by
Absolutely.
because when you are in the moments where you're having to earn that freedom, when you understand everything that goes into earning that freedom, I think it makes you better in those times when you're not celebrating, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, family, friends, community, you know, I go back to service a lot. It's something that makes me feel good. And I think that's generally the way it is for most people. When I'm helping other people or when I'm in service, it makes me feel good. Real estate's one way. That's part of the reason why I chose the profession too. Like I said in the beginning, it was the big bucks and the hours, but I wanted to help people. And so we're involved in, you know, a lot of service and charity with the family and with my wife and kids, and we try to help out where we can and give back. And it's something that's really important to us. And we want our kids to see that too, that it's not all about me, it's not all about us, that there's people out there that need help, that want help, that one day you're probably going to need help, and you're going to need to reach out to somebody and ask for help. And it makes it easier to do that when you've provided help and when you understand what it feels like to need help. So it's, you know, family is what I would put first. Like you said, fitness is a big part of our life too. And that goes back to, again, being able to throw a football or play baseball with my kids.
And just be there, ultimately.
Absolutely, yeah. Just be there, you know. And then the example to them too, you know, to eat healthy and work out and help people. So that's probably what I'd say are the most important parts.
Which I think that those are all things that require an intense amount of focus, right? If you're not dialed in and locked in, those things go away really, really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say is a piece of advice specific to real estate? Mm-hmm. I always tell people when they come into a model home and I'm sitting there talking to them, like I will always stop and I will say, hey, even if you don't buy a house from me, even if you don't buy a house from Edge, which I would love it if you do, right? That's how I pay my bills. But if you don't buy a house from me, just buy something.
I love it. Yep.
What's one piece of advice? What's one piece of value that you would give to somebody listening to this, even if they don't hire you as their agent?
I think that's probably one of them. You know, there's an old saying in real estate: don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. So, like we've talked about already in this podcast, it's one of the proven methods of gaining generational wealth, of achieving your financial goals, of being able to help other people, of being able to give back, of having that freedom that I want, is buying real estate and holding on to it. And like you said, you know, you make the money when you buy it. You buy real estate and you hold on to it. And sometimes it makes sense. There's times when you need to sell and there's an exit strategy. But for the most part, you buy real estate and you hold on to it. And like you said, even if it's not from me, find someone that you vibe with, that you enjoy, that you can hang out with and sit down with.
That you can accomplish these goals with, right? I love that word that you use, and that's one of my favorite questions to ask somebody is, what is your goal with this? What is the motivation in you buying this house right now?
Exactly, yeah. Who can you accomplish that goal with, and then just do it, you know, and you're never going to be ready. If you wait until you're ready, you're going to continue to wait forever. Like, just get the ball rolling, sit down with me, or if it's not me, with someone else, and just figure out what you want, what your goals are, and just start the process and just get it going. So,
well, I love that. We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I love it.
Thanks
for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, great time.